As I think most of you know, I'm new to this country and found the experience unsettling at the outset. Disorienting is the term I introduced. But over time and through conversation, not only felt as though I now enjoy some sense of participation in this interior, but also with traveling you have the benefit of rethinking what you thought you knew and even growing in your understanding, and for that I'm very grateful. One of the earliest texts we have in interior, the theory of interior design, at least those that I'm familiar with, comes from an odd source, Edgar Allan Poe. He wrote a wonderfully fascinating and challenging and irritating text called The Philosophy of Furniture. And in it, Poe introduces the concept of fitting. Settings should fit purposes like shoes, feet, gloves, hands. And design, on Poe's account, strives for near perfect congruity or fit between body and place, or habit and habitation, as if completeness, thoroughgoingness is the object of design. And if you know his stories, the House of Usher, the fall of the House of Usher is, in my judgment, the most perfect example of that kind of fit between a family and its place. As if the inhabitants or tenants of the house were not only expressed by, but I felt as I read it, fated by their residents. I feel it's something like topographical destiny that he had in mind. It rings somehow similar in tonality to what Heidegger called equipmental totality. And this came to mind during a presentation that alluded to the somewhat overwhelming feeling one gets reading Gaston Bachelard. You feel in some interiors a kind of oppressed, overburdened quality because it's been so highly tuned to what is either normalized or expected as a practice. I think the best statement of this at the end of the 19th century tradition, this feeling of being burdened by a setting that fits too closely, is Adolf Loos. He wrote a text called The Poor Little Rich Man. And you may remember the last line of that text. He says, in this environment that has been so perfectly designed, in which nothing needs to be added and certainly nothing can be taken away, now I know what it's like to go about one's life as a corpse. The setting is so complete, you feel enslaved to its structures. So what do we have in our 20th century? With Frank Lloyd Wright, the box is broken. With Le Corbusier, the frame makes the wall into a window. With Mies van der Rohe and, let's say, Rudolf Schindler, platforms extend the in to the outside and vice versa. And it's generally understood to be a principle of continuity, not containment, but openness and flow. So much so that by the post-war period, we have in all our cities a whole series of wind-swept spaces where the flow is so accelerated, one wonders if arrival is ever possible. I wanted to start with that polarity, artificial as I've constructed it, to say that this conference with its striking title, suggests that there still is a task of containment. Containers, I think, are what we inhabit. But the conference asks us to unsettle them, to open them or challenge them or disturb that closure, confinement, enslavement that I think Poe raised as a potential and Los exposed as a problem of the Victorian, overcooked, greenhouse-like, as if each of us is an orchid. None of those have a long lifespan, which was Los's point. So between that on the one hand and the flow, there is, I think, unsettled containers. And as I've tried to learn from the presentations made in the past day and a half, it seemed to me there were at least three powers or agencies or forces that would not only unsettle and challenge one's sense of containment, but also remake it or redefine it. The first, and it was the first word of the entire conference, first force of unsettling is temporality, transience, or the inflection of time. And what I've concluded from a number of papers is that we should try to envisage interiority not in time, but through time.